Welcome to the Beau Show. I recently attended the National Religious Broadcasters Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. It is a gathering of primarily Christian broadcasters, but it also has expanded to include other faiths, with a particular focus on Judaism and Israel. At this conference, I interviewed many content creators who have created new sources of clean entertainment. Two of those creators are Daniel Harmon and Neal Harmon, otherwise known as the Harmon brothers, along with their other siblings. Daniel and Neal originally created something called VidAngel, which could remove the unsuitable parts of movies and TV shows. Eventually, Daniel went on to be the head creative of Harmon Brothers, an ad agency that created advertisements for viral ads for Squatty Potty, Purple Mattress, and Poopery. Daniel and his brother Neal now lead Angel Studios, a crowdfunding platform for faith and family content, such as the hit TV series The Chosen and Tuttle Twins. I was able to sit down with Daniel and Neal individually to find out how brothers who used to sell potatoes wound up being pioneers in family and faith-based entertainment. Here's my chat with Daniel and Neal Harmon. Daniel Harmon of the Harmon Brothers, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I want to go dive into your background and find out really how the Harmon Brothers came to be. I was reading about you, and you had a post on LinkedIn where you talked about all this significant amount of rejection that you'd faced and an unlikely course to where you are. Can you go through some of those rejections with me and how you persevered past them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest rejections started when I applied for college. I wanted to get into BYU. That was my dream school. My parents went there. I was always a big sports fan of BYU athletics, and I didn't end up getting in the first time I applied. That was a bit of a blow, and I had to go and take summer classes, get good grades, and kind of prove myself a little bit more before I got in. And then I applied to I remember while I was at school, I wanted to be in the men's chorus. It's a very well-known men's choir, and I also didn't get into that. So I went back and took some open enrollment choir courses where I developed some more skills, and I went back and applied, and then I got in there. And then the same thing happened when I went to apply for the animation program there later. I also got rejected from that, but ultimately ended up finding my way into advertising through that route and getting accepted into that program. And it's kind of been a little bit of a theme of my life where I ended up going into the advertising industry and ended up getting laid off with the 2008 crisis. But then that led into a job with Orabrush eventually, where we produced over 100 videos over the course of 2 years and really learned the skill set of making video content, which later led into doing Squatty Potty and later led into, Poopery, Squatty Potty, and Purple and so on.
So you were in the ad agency. Let's talk about the creation of that viral ad for Squatty Potty, which takes this medieval farce of a unicorn going to the bathroom and pooping, and it turns into ice cream.
Yeah.
And thanks to this simple contraption, or maybe a concraption, however you want to call it, how did you come up with that ad?
When Squatty Potty approached us and wanted us to do marketing for their product, what they were looking for was a way to demonstrate it so that it wasn't gross.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started saying, what are some things that are like poop but are completely not like poop? And so one of the answers was soft serve ice cream. That was kind of a concept that my brother was mulling over, and then we started thinking about, okay, how do we make that so that it makes sense? We considered things like a giant ice cream machine that was shaped like a person. Yeah, there were some bad ideas that we had before the good idea. No, that didn't make it. And when we decided it could maybe come from a unicorn, and that would be like a magical thing, like unicorns could be pooping ice cream. That would make sense.
And no one would care.
And then it would be coming from like an ice cream truck, and it was like a big Clydesdale unicorn. It was a terrible idea, and it wasn't until our writer, Dave Vance, brought the concept of putting it in a fantasy world with a prince as the pitch person, and then the unicorn being this kind of baby creature that demonstrated that it all kind of like made sense. Not just for us, but for Squatty Potty themselves. We were like, okay, we knew we loved you guys. We knew you'd do something cool, but now it makes sense. And anyway, that's kind of where it was born from. It's like we just needed a way to talk about poop in a way that caught people off guard and didn't turn them off.
Well, I have to ask, because you've done Squatty Potty, you've done Poopery, as you mentioned. Do you go out looking for these, or does the aroma just find you? How does this happen?
Yeah, there was a time that we were getting known to be like the Poop Brothers because we'd done several of these sort of, like Aura Brush was a tongue cleaner for bad breath.
Right.
And Poopery was a spray to stop poo stink before it started inside the toilet. And then there was Squatty Potty, it was all about colon health. But after we did Purple Mattress, where the Goldilocks video with the egg test and all that kind of stuff, and that blew up. And then we repeated it again with Fiber Fix and with chat books and all these different videos, and people started to realize, oh, their formula can work for any product as long as it's like a good product. And that's essentially what it was, is people were seeking us out with products that were innovative, that were disruptive, and we were just like, oh, cool, what's the best way to sell this? And we would always just kind of come up with off-the-wall concepts and things that we felt like we'd never seen before, but that would be really entertaining to us if we were watching the ad. That's kind of where it started from.
How important are humor and satire to your work, not just in what you did in the ad realm, but what you're doing now?
Incredibly important. It's a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And so when we have a message we want to get across, you use humor in order to get people's guard down. Whenever people feel like they're being sold or being taught too hard or something along those lines, then they're not going to listen very well. But then if you can get them laughing, all of a sudden they're in a lot more receptive place to absorb the message. And so humor is essential not only in the absorption of the message, but also the memorability of it, right? Yeah. Of being able to recall afterwards and have that brand really stick with them.
So you've transitioned really from your day-to-day role with Harmon Brothers on the creative and the advertising side over to show running Tuttle Twins.
Yep.
Tell me how that project came to fruition and where we are right now with season 1.
Tuttle Twins is a book series that has sold over 3 million copies. It teaches kids about principles of freedom and economics. The author of the series, Connor Boyack, he and I have been friends for a while, worked on different projects together, and so we've mutually respected each other's work. When he released the book series, I immediately bought it for my kids. We read it together, loved it, and I bought every book since. Once that had enough momentum and he started entertaining the idea of turning it into a cartoon series or into a TV show, then my team and I approached him and said, no, we want to turn that into a TV show for you. Essentially, I kind of could see a vision for where the show could go, meaning that we could teach the principles in a really clear way, but we could also do it in an entertaining way where kids would want to choose it as entertainment and as over their choices on Netflix and YouTube or Disney Plus, and where they would love the characters and the fun adventure and find it really relatable, but then also they get a lesson at the same time. Kind of like, Magic School Bus. Right. We're kind of mixing a little bit of that world of the Magic School Bus with like the zaniness and kind of fondness of like Phineas and Ferb. That's kind of where we're living with this show. And so once I had that in my head of how that could play out, then I got really passionate about the project.
And you said it talks about the principles of freedom and democracy, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Things like personal freedom, free markets, entrepreneurship, the golden rule, all these kind of things that are either being lost from schools or from culture altogether.
Is this then, is Tuttle Twins the antithesis of Marxist indoctrination in some of children's entertainment or what we're seeing in academia?
To some degree, I would say yes, meaning we're very much teaching about the failures of Marxism as we go through this, but we're trying to empower kids with their ability to choose, their ability to think critically, their ability to understand what their rights are. That's a very empowering message for kids, and it's been really fun to do because we're not really doing it with the labels, meaning we're not talking about liberal versus conservative and Republican versus Democrat or any of those kinds of things. We're just talking about ideas and principles and then letting them think about how to apply things. And much of the media that's out there, kids media, a lot of parents are getting kind of disturbed by what's kind of seeping into it that maybe they don't agree with. Our show is very different in that we're really upfront about the fact that this show is unabashedly teaching principles of freedom
Right.
and economics, and we're not hiding anything. And I think that's a lot of where we stand out. Just like we are who we are. If those are your values and you want to pass those on down to your kids, we can be a great resource.
Why do you think this has been such an original concept? Why don't you think anyone has done this up until now?
I don't think there's been a combination of interest from Hollywood side. Hollywood lives in their own bubble. The ideas of free markets and individual liberty and those kinds of things aren't like super popular there. And so it isn't naturally born out of that environment. And so there hasn't been that combination of being able to distill the principles down to simple enough terms that kids can understand them and adults can understand them until the book series came along, and Connor did such a fantastic job with that. And then there hasn't been the know-how from the content creation side to do it in a way that it could have excellence, that it could actually be like a highly rated show on IMDb and that kind of thing. And that's where we're landing with it. So we've been very fortunate in that way.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, I think that's fascinating that you've taken, you knew the author for a long time, you were friends, and then this synergy just happened, born from both, I guess, just serendipity, fate, God wink, however you want to think of it.
Yeah, all of the above.
All of the above. But who would think that, what Hollywood should be doing is happening in Provo, Utah, with your brothers?
Yeah, and with Connor Boyack, the author, he's a co-executive producer on the project. So he actually helps ensure the integrity of the lesson as it comes across. So we are checking in with him regularly on the writing process, and he's very bought into it as well.
Well, Daniel Harmon, thanks so much for taking the time with me today. I've learned a lot just by being here with you, so thanks for getting me inside your creative brain.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Daniel. Neal Harmon of the Harmon Brothers is my guest today. Neal, thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you for having me on, Beau.
Absolutely. Well, Neal, we've got a lot to discuss, but I want to go back to the beginning because I know that you and your brothers were Idaho potato farmers and sellers. That's an unlikely journey to Angel Studios. Can you walk me through that and tell me how you wound up from selling potatoes to becoming a player in the faith entertainment industry?
That's a great question. I think it came down to when you're doing farm work, hard labor. My family didn't actually have a farm when I was growing up, but we did farm work for those around us. And you needed an escape.
You were able to, you had limited entertainment, it sounds like.
Yes.
But you did learn the value of hard work and a work ethic.
Yep.
That's what it sounds like, what gave you the developmental part of this.
Yeah.
But you and your brothers, how many do you have?
So there are 9 siblings, 6 boys and 3 girls.
And are all of you involved in this business, in this venture?
No, not all of us. 3 brothers are involved in Angel Studios.
Okay. Well, I read about you, and you've said that Pixar kind of inspired you to start Angel Studios. And was there any specific Pixar project that helped you conceptualize what you do now at Angel Studios?
So I love the book Creativity, Inc. by Ed Catmull. It's a very, very good book. Honestly, Beau, I never would have expected to be in this business. But we learned to sell. We learned business. I bought a cow when I was young and raised cows and sold them, and so I understood the idea of doing something and then selling it for more. I mean, that's a pretty simple concept. But then when we got older and we started having our own kids, we said, we really want great stories and to be able to experience them with our kids, like the whole family, that we can watch them all together, but that be compelling stories for us, but also not something where we'd be wanting to shut their eyes or close their ears. And so we came up with this idea of creating a service, and we called it VidAngel at the time, where it allowed you to skip things that you didn't. My favorite movie at the time was Cinderella Man, and the New Yorker coach has a mouth.
Right.
And my little kids were like 8, 9, the oldest, and then the youngest were on down. And everything they hear, they repeat. And so we thought, if we create a service that allows you to skip a few things that are objectionable and still enjoy the story with your kids, let's do that. We interviewed or surveyed a bunch of Americans and found out about a half of American parents wanted the same service. And we said, if we create this and it's really good, we're going to attract an audience of people, and then we'll be able to produce and distribute content better than Hollywood for those people. That was the idea back in 2013.
Is there a for Angel Studios, is there a fine line between entertaining and preachy? And I'm asking this because I think of the animated Sony film The Star,
Yes.
okay, which seemed to thread that needle, but it also had a $20 million budget. That's a major, major motion picture. Is there room for that type of big budget content, or do you think it will always be a niche market?
We're going to find that out soon, Beau, because we're working on a $54 million film
Whoa.
called David. And it tells the story of King David, and it's an animated show.
Wow.
And the creators are trying to thread the needle between something as epic as, say, Prince of Egypt felt,
Yeah.
but as fun and as rewatchable as Moana or Tangled. And it's pretty ambitious what they're trying to pull off, and
Yeah.
at the budget that they're trying to pull it off, and we're going to find out.
Well, good. I'm glad I know this now. Well, my final question for you, Neal, is why do you do what you do? What gets you out of bed to do what you're doing now? What makes you excited about it? What's the why for you?
There's a scripture in Isaiah that says, and your children will be taught of the Lord, and great will be the peace of your children. What gets me out of bed and gets me so excited is I'm fighting for my children and their children to have a better world. And light can pierce through a very, very dark world. And I feel like that these creators and the people who are backing the Angel projects are putting a beacon of light out there that can make the world a better place.
Well, Neal, congratulations on all of your success. I know it hasn't been easy, but you seem like you're off to just an amazing start, and I can't wait to see David as well. What an ambitious project. It sounds very exciting. Thank you for your time, Neal.
Thank you, Beau.